So the foods your kid was spitting across the room one week might just become their jam a month later. Can you imagine, like, one day spinach is their nemesis and 2 weeks later they're like Popeye? Hi, I'm Mareya, otherwise known as the Fit Foodie. I'm a chef, holistic nutritionist, author, inventor, and mom. And I want to welcome you to my podcast. It's called Recipes for Your Best Life. And with every episode, I'm peeling back the onion on fitness, nutrition, health, wellness, and family. The truth is, you're the chef of your life. And for every important pillar, there's a great recipe worth sharing. So every week, we'll explore them together. Think of it as food for thought that you can really sink your teeth into. So join me, and let's squeeze the joy out of this life. Because you only get one. Can I get a fork, yeah? Raise your hand if this sounds like you, okay? But no judgment. You choose peanut butter and jelly on white bread. I said no judgment, but I'm judging. No, I'm not judging. Gummy worms and Cocoa Puffs. Dinner might look like hot dogs, burgers, pizza, mac and cheese, you know, good old American food. Maybe throw in some pancakes and bacon. Goldfish is your go-to snack. Some Oreos for dessert, washed down with some Kool-Aid. Man, that is your ideal meal. Not one identifiable vegetable in there, right? So basically your taste buds never really advanced beyond preschool. Or maybe you got to grade school level taste buds, you know, where you can handle a few carrot and celery sticks, maybe, with ranch dressing, along with the buffalo wings. But the idea of a salad or grilled fish or something that resembles something from nature makes you break out in a clammy sweat. Look, I'm not judging. I really am not judging. It's not your fault. You can blame it on your parents. I mean, it all starts in the womb. You know, if mama was washing down Twinkies and chips with diet soda from 15 weeks on, that impacted your taste buds when you were just swimming around in there. It sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Your parents and what they ate influenced you, specifically your mom, during your time in the womb. And there's a physiological reason why it gets even more advanced, because you were swallowing about 1 liter of amniotic fluid every trimester. So what mama ate, you were eating. Then you made your exit into the world and got introduced to the perfect food, which is mother's milk. God created the perfect balance of carbohydrates, protein, and fat in breast milk. But then something went really awry. You sprouted teeth, and your free will, because right about there is when your free will kicked in, you know what I'm saying? When a child has a nuclear meltdown over broccoli, you know, it's really easy for a parent to let go of the wheel. But the good news is it's never too late to make your taste buds grow up. And your taste buds, my friends, are what need to grow up in order to stick to a clean eating plan. My son was a phenomenal eater as a baby. He'd slurp up his sweet potatoes and pound those peas like a champ. Apples were his favorite, and he'd really dig on anything fruit related. You know what I'm saying? Like pureed pears, plums, maybe a little banana. Add that to the breast milk. Oh my gosh, forget it. But when he turned 2, my little tyrant started throwing down the gauntlet at every single meal. I mean, it was bad. Children have the ability to express that displeasure with food from a really young age, right? I mean, they do it whether they're spitting it out, you know, across the room, onto the floor, painting the walls and the ceiling with it, you know what I mean? Painting their little food tray in their high chair, rubbing it all over their face. That was my son. Anything green flew from his mouth like a projectile explosion. And it left us both ugly sobbing, ugly sobbing, like that crying, ugly, tears, mad, screaming, not good. It was gruesome. And I have to admit, many peas paid the price. So after our little ones make that transition from the wondrous, very complex nutrition that is breast milk to solid food, they shift to fruit and veggies, all of that good stuff, but somewhere between the veggie full plates where, we're introducing peas and carrots and spinach and green beans and squash and everything that comes in a baby food packet, they then transition into the age of ordering off a children's menu. And that palette, that beautiful rainbow palette of red and orange and green and purple and blue morphs into brown and shades of brown and white. It's kind of like, reminds me of like when somebody is about to faint, that you can see the color literally drain from their face. Well, that color drains from their plates. And in order to avoid a full out battle, because babes, I've been there with you. I'm still in the trenches with you because my son is still a picky eater, but I'm not giving up. So why do we slip down the rainbow? Why do we let go of all that beautiful color of food to a place of no palate return? There's a scientific term for it, and it's called neophobia. And it's a fear aroused by new foods. It's actually a syndrome. It's got a name attached to it. And all omnivorous animals, omnivores, those who eat different types of foods, are scared to try the unknown. So the years between the ages of 2 and 10 are the worst. And between 4 and 7 years old, children usually only agree to taste something unfamiliar if they are strongly encouraged to, with some sort of reward and consistency. Threatening, not so much. So the good news is neophobia, that fear of trying new foods, can be overcome with education and consistency, knowing the positive outcome of eating those foods and offering them frequently. Sometimes that means offering new foods up to 20 times. Maybe it's cooked one way one time. Maybe it's prepared another way another time. Maybe it's left raw. Maybe it's given with a sauce or something to dip into. But we don't give up. And we don't give in to the tantrums and the fits. The average person is actually born with about 10,000 taste buds. That's a lot of taste buds. So that explains why certain foods may taste stronger and more, let's call it abrasive, to children, and why accepting different flavor profiles can be so challenging. But about every 2 weeks during childhood, taste buds get replaced. Every 2 weeks. That's a pretty regular replacement. So the foods your kid was spitting across the room 1 week might just become their jam a month later. Can you imagine, like, one day spinach is their nemesis and 2 weeks later they're like Popeye? I mean, it could happen. How would you know if you don't keep offering it? I always say if you let your foot off the gas and don't keep filling their plates and your family's plates with fruit and veggies, it'll be so much harder to introduce those variety of flavors later on. Dr. Daniel Amen, who I worked with very closely on the New York Times bestseller, The Daniel Plan, says you have to be their frontal lobe of their brain until theirs develops. They are not equipped to make those choices, but you are. And so a growing process is happening. We've got to give it time. We got to put down the roots, before we pull it up and just say, oh, my kid won't eat it. My family won't eat it. Shoot, I don't want to eat it. We have to give it time. Let it germinate. Let it plant. Let it root down. And if you need to, I'm just giving you license to have maybe a wine o'clock time. You know what I'm saying? Like, do what you need to do. Really, the best thing to do is just keep breathing. Because that tantrum over the tomatoes is not going to be long-lived. It might just get better. And I will say that that child of mine who used to have tantrums now eats asparagus without any problems, eats broccoli without any problems, will eat a Caesar salad without any problems, loves carrots, will even eat raw radish, this kid. So just don't give up. The truth is taste buds are really highly complex. And people that get set in their ways of eating early on, it may seem like it's beyond hope to recondition those taste buds, but it isn't. The reason they're so complex is because they respond to so many different things. They respond to temperature, and they respond to the physical sensation of food, texture, how it feels on the tongue. They respond to taste profiles, savory, sweet, acidic, acrid, bland, salty foods, balanced foods, umami foods, and all of the range in between. But just like a muscle, just like when you go to the gym, those taste buds need to be conditioned. They do. Think about it. They are like the strongest muscle. Your tongue is the strongest muscle in your body because the tongue wags the brain. So when they're conditioned, when they assimilate to trying a broad spectrum of those flavors, they then appreciate those flavors. They might even prefer those flavors. And it doesn't mean that you have to quit cold turkey. I think that's where people don't have the most success, is when you drop everything that you potentially love. If your eating habits are really on that, how I described in the beginning, the Cocoa Puffs and the gummy worms and sweet, garbage, processed foods, it may take a little bit more time, but they can be retrained. So flexing your taste buds means retraining them with the same focus and energy that you would use if you were strength training at the gym. You develop a taste for certain things by tasting them and doing it regularly. And then you learn to love foods that actually represent the most healthful benefits. The sour foods, the umami foods, the savory flavors that come in the form of fresh vegetables, bitter flavors. Celery, seaweed, greens, you'll appreciate mushrooms and tomatoes and spinach and those flavor profiles that aren't associated with sugar. Because sugar takes a hold. Sugar is at the tip of your tongue. If you open your mouth right now and point to the tip of your tongue, my friends, those little taste buds are your sugar and salt right next to each other. So of course, they're the first thing to actually experience flavor. We have to now develop the other flavor profiles, the umami, the sour, the bitter. And that's where a lot of your healthful foods come into play. A lot of the time people say, I have a sweet tooth. I can't help it. I have a sweet tooth. They're the ones that start craning their necks looking for the dessert tray, right when they've placed their order. But is having a sweet tooth really a habit or a true physiological need for sugar? I think it could be a little bit of both, but I think you can out-train yourself from both too. And one of the things that I would say is, what are you starting your day with? Right? So you set the tone of your day with what you have in the morning. And when you look all over the world, you'll notice that the different types of foods that represent breakfast foods are really varied. In Japan, breakfast is sea vegetables, rice,